I'm born the way I am. I can't exactly change that.
I made a video about 14 months ago on Jessica Yaniv, except I don't think I ever used their name in that video. And now I kind of regret that this isn't one of the videos where I really dug in and looked for more information, because I'm sure there was some interesting stuff I could have found back then. And I'll be getting into the Yaniv and Blair discussion in a minute here. But first, I wanted to point out that there's another case which I think is even more absurd from the Vancouver Island University, where the human rights complaint person got brought up on human rights charges because them and some other women refused to change the diaper of a 40-year-old man who identified as a 3-year-old and dressed as Curious George. I've tried to find more on this story, but it's basically just disappeared. So, on to the show.
Right, so that was in 2017.
That was prior to hormones.
Right, so why would you, having not transitioned at all, not dressing as a woman, making no effort at all, think that it's appropriate to go into a woman's bathroom and take photos in which young girls are presented? Why is that okay?
Because I was legally female. And
that
Blair,
Blair. That's the problem. That's the problem, because I'm going to say this. In the United States, again, Canada, you got to get it together. But in the United States, to become legally female, there's actually a lot you have to go through. You have to get doctor sign-offs. You have to go to court. You have to do a lot of things. It's not as easy as saying, "Hi, my name's Brad, but I'm also a female." It's not that easy.
One sec. Let me show you something.
Something irrelevant again?
No. Let me show you this. This is literally the form to change your gender. That's the form right there. It's all you have to do is basically say, hey, okay, I'm changing from male to female. And that's it.
And that's a problem. I've established that.
So this is to, did you say identity?
To use male identification.
This is to...
Stop. That's the form right there.
Do you want me to say that you should be identified as a male?
Yes, please.
Okay. The letters of
Thank you so much.
Have you thought at all about the impact that you've had on these women, on these women's businesses, and how it's hurting them financially, and how they're getting attacked because of the drama, stress, and financial ruin that you put them through? Do you ever empathize with them, or think that was you don't?
Because they're not getting attacked. The person that's getting attacked is me. They're not getting attacked. You know how
not getting your balls waxed is an attack.
You know how I know they're not getting attacked? Basically they're saying, oh, they're getting really insulting phone calls. They're getting this. The reason is because they're not like retail businesses. The one retail business that I got shut down is already shut down. I already got them shut down.
Why are you proud of shutting down someone's business? That's sick.
This insane shit, this crazy double standard where throwing a milkshake on someone isn't an attack. Getting someone fired, that's not an attack. Taking away their job, that's not an attack. No, having mean words on Twitter, that's what a real attack is. Mean words in a YouTube video are an attack. Showing up at someone's door and throwing shit at their house, that's not an attack. And even Yaniv's own double standard. Hey, I want you to wax my balls. I know it's against your religion, but oh well. They're not the ones under attack, those dirty, horrible immigrants. I'm under attack when people say I'm fat and look like a man. And in case you're the one person who doesn't know, that's a reference to Lindsay Shepherd getting kicked off of Twitter for saying that exact thing. Though I do hear she's back on now.
How exactly you're comfortable taking away that ability to feed their kids because they didn't wax your ball?
You see, this is a big issue with the
it is.
with the media, because it was reported incorrectly. In these cases, the business owner was in business for only 3 weeks, and I was her only client. and then she shut down her business. That was the one that was covered by Fox News, for example.
So you shut down an up-and-coming business that could have possibly been profitable, is what you're saying. It wasn't necessarily profitable yet, but you got it shut down.
Imagine that. You go to esthetician school, you get all the supplies that you need, right? All the tools, you apply for your business license, you go through all that. Your first client walks through the door like a fucking gorilla. This hairy beast monster. And you're going, oh my god, what? I'm a bit over my head here. I mean, think what this thing looks like once that wig comes off. You got to Canada 4 years ago, you're looking for a better life. I'm not sure that this is it.
The fact of the matter is that immigrants have a very, very distasteful taste on the trans community. Very.
I've never experienced that, and I'm trans, and I've been trans for longer than you.
Because you don't live here, Blair. You don't live here.
Okay, but I live in fucking...
You live in California, which is so...
I live in California, a border state where all the illegal immigrants in the world come to. I've never experienced anything like that.
But do you have...
Then the problem is...
Blair, do you have like a huge East Indian community down in Hollywood?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Exactly.
52% of Surrey's population do not speak English as their first language, and slightly over 30% of its inhabitants are of South Asian heritage. The vast majority of South Asians are of Punjab heritage. It's kind of weird to refer to people from the Punjab region as South Asian, seeing as it's in northern India, bordering on the Middle East, but whatever. This fact is reflected in the large Sikh, Muslim, and Hindu population of the city. Nearly 8% of the city is Chinese and 6% Filipino, and it's home to the largest black community in British Columbia. From the 2016 census, 38.7% of the population identifies as having European origin, essentially parity with the South Asian population. Punjabi is the mother tongue of 1/5 of the city's population. So California, in many ways, has immigration, which is somewhat comparable to Vancouver area immigration. And compared to Hispanic people in general and illegal immigrants in particular, the South Asians have a relatively low crime rate, and Surrey is quite a safe place compared to really most American cities. But there are far more factions, they're more ghettoized, and Canada doesn't impose the ethos of imposing the greater society onto them, and they have gotten so used to living in their own sheltered societies that they will certainly discriminate against trans people, for sure, against white people sometimes.
ना ना लड्डू बर्फी दा मैं बिल्कुल ही नहीं खांदी बस बेसन मिल्क केक ते कदे कदे गुलाब जामुन संडे
आंटी ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ 'ਚ ਹਜੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੂਗਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਡਾਇਬੀਟੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਰੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਹਜੇ ਨਵੀਂ ਕਿਡਨੀ ਦੀ ਆਦਤ ਪਾਉਣੀ ਪੈਣੀ ਹੈ
बेटी मेरी डायबिटीज बिल्कुल ठीक है मैं अपनी पिल हर रोज लेनी आ टाइम ते
आंटी the pill doesn't do that much it's not there to let you eat more sugar
अच्छा ते डॉक्टर ने कदों आना
I am the doctor. Dr. Sharma?
And to be honest, Sikhs and Hindus do a very good job of integrating into Canadian society and becoming Canadians in their values and behaviors. But the flood of immigration is too fast and too quick to enable this process to happen, where it's made it impossible for them to become socialized into the values of a Canadian society. Say in general, even if Yaniv was a more presentable person, there are elements certainly which would discriminate. I think it should be their right to. Sikh people are quite a conservative group and they're uncompromising, but in general they get along in society quite well. And transgender people should be no more free to impose themselves upon them than the Sikhs are to impose themselves or their beliefs upon the transgender people.
So do you think that women should be forced, or that you are justified in forcing women to handle your genitalia?
Yeah, I honestly do.
Lauren Southern is a commentator you may be familiar with, and she was from this area as well. And I've heard her criticized for the claim that none of her neighbors spoke English. And having done door-to-door sales in this area, I can certainly attest that there are entire blocks where if they speak English, well, they'll certainly claim they don't, and can't blame them, door-to-door salesman, right?
Come on, no can do, no speaking English.
But realistically, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people being in a single area who do not speak English at all.
The wig is slipping, fix it. It's slipping. Push it back, it's slipping. There you go.
They will say no. My mom will message and call businesses saying, I have a transgender daughter.
You have your friends and your mom harassing all these businesses too. It's not just you. You got a little fucking team going on.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, so what Yaniv was doing here, her whole shtick was she'd get a Facebook appointment going, message someone up on Facebook, hey, can you book me for such and such time? Yeah, okay, whatever, I'll meet you then. Oh, by the way, I've got a penis and balls. Well, sorry, I really can't do that. Well, bang, lawsuit, discrimination, right there.
So you have your mom and your friends harassing all these businesses too.
I'm not harassing them, just asking for service.
Who calls and says, I'm transgender and I want a service? If you're a woman, just be a fucking woman. Walk in and know that you're a woman. Don't tell
Because
me.
then you get fucking assaulted over here. That's why I have to have pepper spray with me.
Wait, what? Who pepper sprayed you?
I have to carry pepper spray with me because people are so freaking violent over here.
You know, I
They
think
are violent.
needs to carry pepper spray is all the young girls who have to share a bathroom stall with you while you're thinking about putting tampons in them. That's what I think needs to happen.
Now, I could just dismiss Yaniv, but hey, I'm from here. Let's see if I can do better and analyze the claims. Now, as far as Canada goes, Surrey has always had a reputation as a violent city. Particularly in the past, it was the car theft capital of the country, and I think it was probably the murder capital for some years, and it was always kind of a scuzzy place. Now, when I say it was a scuzzy place, you can compare the crime rates in Surrey to Portland in the USA. Over time, the per capita murder rate has dropped from about 4 per 100,000. It might have been a little higher back in the day, to around 2 per 100,000 now, whereas the US average is 5.
But basically, Surrey, British Columbia is a freaking hellhole. I'm not gonna lie about that. The city where I live is a hellhole for trans people.
Even when Surrey had that really negative reputation, it was still a rather nice place to live. And the type of immigrants we get to Canada, especially in the past, haven't caused as much crime as the locals. Just to be honest, particularly in Surrey, a place that had a reputation like that, it wasn't the Indian immigrants causing the crime. There were some notable cases back in the day. There was an incident where 1 or 2 Sikh men were stabbed over an ongoing argument, whether the Sikhs would have seating in their temples when they ate, whether they would sit on the floor like the old-fashioned style. And there was this infamous case of Jazzy Singh Sidhu, who was killed in an honor killing. There are phone records, over 100 phone calls back and forth with the mother. I think they have recordings of some of them. And 20 years later, they're still trying to extradite her. They've never been locked up. Crazy shit. The family owns big chunks of land and go to the temple and one thing about Surrey is that it was always strictly segregated. The Indian kids tended to have their side of town and their side of the classroom.
There's a new twist in the Baldev Khalsi case. The Brookside Sikh temple president did not appear in court yesterday on a charge of attempted murder. That's because he was in hospital after being attacked at the Surrey pretrial center. Khalsi is accused of attacking his wife on Sunday. She remains on life support in hospital. RCMP say Khalsi has some facial injuries and will recover. He is expected to appear in court today.
Adding to the confusion, there's not just one type of Indian person. There are, in the main, Hindus and Sikhs, at least here. Sikhs are a tiny minority in India, And even in the small region where they're from, near Pakistan, west of the Himalayas, they're rather a small amount of the population. This small area around Surrey has the highest concentration of Sikhs in the world outside of, I think, the small area of their homeland. And while I was doing some of my typical research, I found this story about the Indian government trying to suppress Canadian universities from appointing a chair of Sikh studies. How bizarre is that? But the leader of the federal NDP party, the New Democratic Party of Canada, has been accused of being a Khalistani separatist. That is, a Sikh separatist who wants a Sikh homeland. Apparently between Pakistan and India, which is say, I mean, man, good luck. But if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the Sikhs.
Okay.
You walk into a Sikh business where the person doing the wax is Sikh.
And now you hate Sikhs, the most.
No, hold on,
Fucking
Blair, let me talk.
Part of the problem here, or the perception of the problem, is, of course, the media. CBC running the article that it has become a normality. Violent crime up 43% in Surrey, first quarter of 2019. And it rose in 2018 as well, but the rise in 2019, according to the RCMP, is because now they're counting it differently. So they're including offenses now where there is no credible evidence to confirm that the incident did not take place. Now on the surface that can look like it's silly. Why would you count things that you don't know took place? But I agree with that. For example, you call 911, by the time the police show up, the guy's gone, and, you know, there's no evidence that he stole your iPhone or that, you know, he attacked you, but you got away, or he held a knife to you, but, you know, you didn't get stabbed, something like that. I think it's definitely, we should have stuff like that on record. Shahnaz Rahman, the executive director of the Surrey Women's Centre, agrees it will help validate victims of abuse, but says it needs to go further. And I actually agree with that too. If there's going to be accusations of sexual assault, they should definitely be in a report and on record. According to Gurpreet Singh Sahota, a founding member of Wake Up Surrey, violence has become a normality. Sahota says many in his community feel not enough is being done by police to stop violent crimes in Surrey. So yeah, well, I would agree that Yaniv is overblowing the problem. So are all these people's organizations and the CBC. Gropings increased and make up a quarter of sexual offenses. I wonder how many of those Yaniv has filed. Even all of the top comments seem to agree. Surrey is some sort of hellhole like northern Mexico. And actually, that's not even a fair comparison.
I ain't even trying to be cheesy, believe me, cause all Surrey girls are just too damn easy. What? Anywhere I go, a Surrey girl will please me. East or west, Surrey girls are easy. Anywhere I go, a Surrey girl will please me. You know how Hindus be when we get tipsy. Wake up and laugh for last night cause of history. Cause the next fucking day we do it again. Favorite line of hoes, yeah, you and a friend. Ride around slamming, looking for pussy. We on some real type hustle shit. Fuck them bookies. Ready to hop out any second for action. Packing trophies, magnums and hangers. When I'm with her and she wants me to kiss her, I'ma raise my hand up like I'm Hitler. I'ma smack the hoe like I'm Jackie, yo. Cause spit don't give a shit, though. No fucking hoes. To all them Surrey girls don't take it as a diss. Cause deep down it's truth, you know you's a trick, bitch.
In fact, it's been alleged that there's a Khalistani separatist terrorist training camp in a small town just outside of the area Yaniv is essentially from. And a 20-minute, half-hour drive away from there. Terrorist training camp. And the man accused of running it is pen pals, I guess, with Justin Trudeau now. He says that the government of India is making up claims when they issue a, I guess, Interpol release or whatever they want them. Some of that ethno-nationalism. Indian intelligence agencies have warned the Canadian government that they're training youths with AK-47s to carry out attacks in India. I fucking hope. Or, well, no, I don't hope, but I just hope they're not carrying out attacks here because I'm here. So, you know, I don't know who to trust in this story, the government of India or the terrorist cell leader. Fuck. Another incident that I heard a lot about as a kid, but never really knew the details of until I looked into it now. And frankly, given what I've just read, what you're about to find out, I'm not surprised. So, plane flying from Montreal to London blows up. Everybody on board dies. 329 people, 268 Canadians, 27 Brits, 24 Indians. The largest mass killing in Canadian history and deadliest act of aviation terrorism before 9/11. There was also a bombing at Narita Airport in Tokyo, Japan at the same time, believed to be connected. The only man convicted was a Canadian national who pled guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 15 years for assembling the bombs for both bombing incidents.
Take the injection.
The trial itself cost $130 million, which in its own is an effective act of terrorism. 15 fucking years. I'm surprised that we didn't give him $10 million. The judge in the case said that there was unacceptable negligence by CSIS, Canadian Intelligence, when hundreds of wiretaps of the suspects were destroyed. Of the 210 wiretaps that were recorded during the months and after the bombing, 156 were erased. And they kept erasing the tapes even after they had found out they were suspects in the bombing. Tara Singh Hare, publisher of the Indo-Canadian Times and member of the Order of British Columbia, provided an affidavit claiming that he had overheard a conversation involving the bombings. In January of that year, one of the men involved was killed near the offices of an England newspaper, leaving Hare as the only witness. On 18th November 1998, Hare was shot dead while getting out of his car in his garage home in Surrey. And that's the Canada Surrey, not the United Kingdom Surrey. Hare had survived earlier attempts on his life in 1988, but was paralyzed and used a wheelchair. Poor motherfucker lived 10 years in a wheelchair, and they come back and they fucking get him. I mean, I just hope he didn't have to see it coming. Fuck.
ਸਰੀ ਆਰਸੀਐਮਪੀ ਨੇ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਊਥ ਸਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਸਰੀ ਆਰਸੀਐਮਪੀ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ 911 ਤੇ ਫੋਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ 에ਅਰ ਐਂਬੂਲੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ.
As a consequence of his murder, the affidavit was inadmissible as evidence. How's that for a fucking legal system for you? Just kill the guy who accused you. Don't worry, it's Red Dead Redemption. That's how we got Canadian law. You just kill all the witnesses, you run away 40 feet and walk fucking scot-free.
You're a moron.
Now why you gotta go and say a thing like that?
I said you're a moron.
You're gonna be sorry as hell you robbed me up!
You heard me.
You don't.
Because they're not getting attacked. The person who's getting attacked is not.
So this assassination was later cited as a reason why the suspects were eventually acquitted in 2005. Good fucking job, courts. Judge, legal system. Fuck. During an interview in 2000, RCMP agents described Surjan Singh Gill as an agent for CSIS, saying the reason that he resigned from the Babar Khalsa was because his CSIS handlers told him to pull out. So, Surjan Singh Gill was living in Vancouver as the self-proclaimed Consul General of Khalistan. That's the Sikh independence movement. He's the Consul General of it, and he's an RCMP plant. He's a mole. There's no such thing as a movement which isn't subverted. Some RCMP, usually from the top down, that's the worst of it. Some RCMP testimony claimed he was a mole who left the plot just days before its execution because he was told to pull out. But the Canadian government denied that report. He later fled to Canada and is believed to be hiding in London, England. Now, the RCMP is federal. They kind of, in a lot of ways, supersede the government. They're independent of it. The government will lie for political reasons. The RCMP generally isn't going to. From time to time, they'll step out of line a bit to, be accountable, I guess. He later fled Canada and is believed to be hiding in London, England. How do you let these people flee the country? How do you let them get into England and then disappear without being tracked by your intelligence there? I mean, I suppose he must be an asset doing some sort of gay ops over there now. Well, that's an interesting development, considering what's called the Atwal affair. A former Khalistani terror group member and convicted attempted assassin and Liberal Party fixture, Jaspal Atwal, was showing up on a list of Justin Trudeau's gala guests during his India trip. Trudeau's hand-picked National Security and Intelligence Advisor came up with the excuse that, the Indian intelligence agencies were just playing a dirty trick on them to make Trudeau look bad. And Trudeau danced. So while I believe that probably most of these cases meet a legal threshold under the current law, I think some of them probably would equate to actual discrimination, on the sake of transgender identity. Say in general, even if Yaniv was a more presentable person, there are elements certainly which would discriminate. I think it should be their right to. Sikh people are quite a conservative group and they're uncompromising, but in general they get along in society quite well. And transgender people should be no more free to impose themselves upon them than the Sikhs are to impose themselves or their beliefs upon the transgender people.
The reason why you would be denied 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, 4 time, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times.
You know why? Because we have fucked up people here that migrate over here that think that they can do whatever the fuck they want.
What?
We have people that migrate here that think that they can do whatever the fuck they want and refuse service to anyone for any reason that they want. I got a
problem is with immigrants.
Blair, I got a phone call yesterday from my credit card company when I was sitting in the hospital, and from someone named from American.
I gotta say, I hate when people do this. Oh, you're being xenophobic now. Oh, Blair, don't you support a wall? I don't actually watch Blair White, so I don't know if I'd imagine she supports limiting immigration to some extent. Is that xenophobic? Okay, well, Surrey is 60% immigrant, or certainly will be soon if it's not already. And yeah, Blair, you're from California, and we have a lot of similarities actually in our immigration in that we tend to have a wealthier class of immigrants. However, I suppose we both have mono-ethnic immigration to some extent, but the cultures are completely different. We have Southeast Asian people who speak all sorts of different languages and tend to live in isolated clusters from each other as well. Many of them, I'm sure, have ethnic rivalries all their own. And in fact, since my recording order got all jumbled up, I know that we will be talking about that extensively. It just always bothers me when somebody will throw out apparently their deeply held principles for the sake of an easy win in an argument. And yeah, I get why you just be dismissive and flippant of Yaniv. I get it, I do, but in a lot of ways, she's right, particularly on this issue. You will be discriminated against. There are a lot of businesses where there's no signage in English. All the signs are in Hindi, and you can't get served in English. I've been turned down for renting and a job. I got turned down for a job at the A&W. I'll give you an actual location here because what are they going to do, sue me? The A&W on Main Street and Commercial Drive in Vancouver, BC. It's underneath the SkyTrain. I applied there when I first moved to Vancouver. I applied there for a job. I had great credentials. A reference from a store manager of a major chain and, all sorts of great qualifications. They told me I needed to speak Punjabi or I forget what the other one was. Punjabi or Hindi, I think it was. And that was a female East Indian manager. There's something ironic about a bunch of Hindu women making hamburgers, I gotta say. Just down the road, there's a Jamaican restaurant. I don't know if it's still there or not. Black tinted windows, and they had a help wanted sign. I went in and it was for a dishwashing position. They literally laughed me out of there. You're white, why do you want to work here? Because I need a job that makes me some fucking money, that's why. I ended up having to get a job at a German deli. I was also discriminated against when I showed up to a rental viewing, and the woman told me she'd prefer an Asian. And I ended up saying to her, you know, that's discriminatory, right? You aren't allowed to do that. And that was the first time that I found out that actually, yeah, you are allowed to discriminate against anyone who is not a protected class, who's not a visible minority or woman or an Aboriginal person or a LGBT person or a disabled person. You're not protected, you're fair game, and sometimes it's mandatory to discriminate against you. Because of this, it's easy to find rental listings which are for women only, as this search that I just did on Kijiji clearly shows. Like, these are all real listings from just hours ago. But that brings up an issue I thought of while I was making the video. What happens when Yaniv applies for one of these rooms and shows up, "Hi, I'm Jessica." Or sorry, no, "Hi, I'm Jessica. I forgot my pills today. Do you mind if we share the shower? Don't mind my leg hairs clogging up the drain." Back then, I hadn't been inoculated by the red pill yet, and so it never occurred to me until the Asian pharmacy where I kept going back to photocopy resume after resume after resume. You know, every couple of days, the pharmacist asked me where I was applying, and I told her, you know, around this area. She told me to apply to English businesses. And I think that's actually the state most Canadians are in, conditioned to be in, coming out of school and etc. They never think about such a thing. I had literally been laughed out of a job application for my skin color, and I still never dawned on me that, you know, there might be a broader issue going on here. And this open racism goes the other way as well. When myself and 4 or 5 college kids walked into a dollar store looking for some stuff for some sort of video we had to put together for an English class, there was a sign at the door saying, "Leave all bags at the counter." So we went to leave our backpacks, and no, not for you, not for you.
Yo, no speaking English.
Now, I'm sure he gets some haggard white bum in there. He's gonna tell them to leave their bag at the counter, right? But that's classism. That's oppression of the poor. And to be honest, I think class is actually protected in the BC Human Rights Code, unlike the typical federal protections. And there's even a case in BC where an Asian employer was openly talking about replacing their white staff with Asians. And the court found that discriminatory, and the difference in that case was negative discrimination versus positive discrimination. If you're trying to get rid of the whites, that's not acceptable, especially if you've already hired them. But if you want to hire Asians or promote Asians or women or etc., even to the exclusion of the majority group, that's generally fine. You just can't buy up a business and fire Whitey or something like that. Which is, you know, great that at least there's that kind of protection. Notably, class isn't protected even under the more expansive BC human rights definitions, which exceed, as far as I know, the federal protections, which are
disability, indigenous status, visible minority, female gender, gender identity and expression.
But not all of these grounds of discrimination apply in each of the following areas of discrimination. So unless you go to court, you're not going to get a hard and fast rule on what you should or shouldn't be doing. And I wonder how far this, you can't be discriminatory towards people in membership in unions or associations. I know employers aren't allowed to not hire you. But if you've got a publication or something like that, and you can also file a human rights complaint if someone might make a human rights complaint about you, or are named as a complaint.
I have to carry pepper spray with me because people are so freaking violent over here.
You know, I think
are violent. It's real. The hate is real, and the violence is real. No, there's a difference between Surrey, British Columbia, and Vancouver, British Columbia. That I'm gonna say.
You're not going to convince me that Canada is some hellhole and like is so like terrifying for trans people. If that was the case, you wouldn't. If that was the case, you wouldn't be throwing your power. You have power in Canada.
During the course of making this video, I've actually come to sympathize somewhat with the Yaniv situation. Certainly Blair White wouldn't be able to understand the social conditions of Surrey, British Columbia. Why would she? British Columbia is such a schizophrenic place. You can go from Richmond, which is a majority Chinese, drive 20 minutes to Surrey, which has sections which are majority Sikh and has a very, very low amount of Chinese people. Drive another 20 minutes and you can reach an area which is almost solely white with scattered indigenous communities. The situation in Surrey is kind of comparable to the Islamized areas in the UK, only with a very different culture and religion. Sikhism doesn't seem to be supremacist. However, the Sikh people seem to be wildly nationalist, with a radically traditionalist streak. People like Yaniv are being suppressed and displaced, even at the apex of achieving their own political objectives. The Sikh people should be allowed to decide whether they do or do not want to take transgender clients. And it should be upon the transgender person to disclose their situation and to request an accommodation or a referral for accommodation.
You have the power to shut down businesses. You have the power to get people in a lot of trouble for discriminating against you.
Transgender people do have some power in Canada. Most of it has kind of recently been attained. But Sikh people have power in Canada too. There are actually many exemptions in our law. The RCMP uniform, bicycle and motorcycle helmet laws, and the weapon laws, specifically regarding the Kirpan and carrying it, say, into government buildings and such. And all of those laws apply, or exemptions from those laws, apply specifically only to Sikhs. The Supreme Court rendered a decision on a case that determined whether or not requiring Sikhs to wear hard hats in the workplace was discriminatory. And the Supreme Court came back with a split decision. The human rights courts are more aggressive than the actual courts and the actual laws. The human rights courts ruled that requiring the hard hat was discrimination. But even the real courts are questionable. The case was decided in 1985 and resulted in a split decision. A split decision. And I wonder how the disposition of the court has changed in the last 30 years. The dissenting judges argued that discrimination does not need to be intentional, such as requiring hard hats, which interferes with the Sikh religion, and that a bona fide occupational requirement did not supersede the need to accommodate. Basically, your bikini ad had better hire the girl in the hijab. Further, they argued that accommodating the employee would not cause an undue hardship on the employer. Two Canadian Supreme Court judges argued, incredibly, that the Canadian Human Rights Act supersedes the Canadian Labour Code, and therefore, a Labour Code provision cannot create an exception for a discriminatory effect. The effect of requiring a hard hat was prima facie discriminatory. And that had to go all the way up to the Supreme Court and still only received a split decision. Trans people have recently attained some power in Canada, but Sikh people have had power for a long time. They have entire communities.
You don't get to pay the
true discrimination.
You're so afraid. Women are afraid of you, Jessica, and probably some men.
I don't agree, but basically, Surrey, British Columbia is a freaking hellhole. I'm not gonna lie about that. The city where I live is a hellhole for trans people.
Okay.
You walk into a Sikh business, Blair.
You know what?
I don't need to be scared in my own house that I'm gonna get fucking attacked, which is illegal in Canada. Just saying. But we're now in 2019. I've never been arrested. I've never been in jail.
Do you think that was like cute? Was that a moment for you?
No, that wasn't a moment for me. But what I'm going to say here is it's real. The hate is real and the violence is real. You cannot tell me, Blair.
I'm reminding you. Think through injection.
So I want anyone watching this video now to stop and carefully watch Yaniv's face during this part of the story. From Yaniv's face, I think it's clear that they believe what they're about to say, that this is them being honest, and in a few minutes here, we're going to see Yaniv being dishonest. And it'll be clear, you'll see the difference night and day.
Do you think it's okay?
It's a help for trans people. Then why are you walking around entering buildings announcing I'm trans and I want my balls waxed? It seems to me
because I'm not.
It seems
Blair,
you said you announced it, and when you go to
I announced it over Facebook. As a trans woman who has had full surgery done,
okay.
You walk into a Sikh business where the person doing the wax is Sikh.
And now you hate Sikhs the most.
No, hold on, Blair, let me talk. You walk into a business where the woman who is doing the wax is a Sikh religious woman. You don't know this, but she is. Now you strip naked, and they notice that you're a biological man. Then they go and they refuse you.
I'm not stripping.
Then they go and they refuse you service.
As a pre-op trans woman, I would not be stripping naked. That's the point. Trans women hide that. They don't shove it.
Blair, post-op.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say here is, if you got refused service post-op, after you strip down naked and say, "Oh, you're biological man, no can do, no speaking English."
Why would they look at a vagina?
That's what they're doing.
I really want to move on to
Sure.
why do you think it's appropriate to go into women's bathroom dressed completely male, making absolutely no attempt at presenting female at all, and even go even further, take photos in the mirror in which young girls are in the background clearly visible?
To be fair, that photo that I took was taken on December 26, 2017, which was a couple days after I changed my legal status to female.
There's a fine line. It's very fine.
Blair, what I want to say here is on that form, it literally says that once it's signed, you have to abide and you have to present as the gender that you are on that form. You cannot tell me that.
And that's a problem. The laws are messed up. They open the door for people like you to do harm to people. We've established that. The fact that you are proud of shutting down a business and someone's ability to feed their children makes you sick. And I know you don't particularly care about children. Maybe you do a little too much, actually. But, have you ever touched a young girl?
No.
Have you ever been intimate with someone under the age of 18?
No.
I don't believe you.
Can you prove it?
Yes, the evidence goes back a very long time. And they're not only screenshots, those tweets exist on Twitter that you can search up.
And that's
Why would you say that?
Because I didn't say that. That's the big thing. Why would I even say that?
Because I think you're a very disturbed person. You're not going to tell me if even one of those screenshots, which there are hundreds, are real and 567 of them are fake, then it's damning against you.
It is. And it is. And I totally agree that these messages are fucked up. I'm going to put it.
So why did you send them?
I didn't send them.
No, you sent them.
I did not send them.
You know you did.
No, I didn't.
You know you did, just like you lied and said that you were more attractive than me. You know you lied.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it seems to me, Jessica,
Now, all of this stuff, I believe all of this, Yaniv soliciting young girls and all of that creepy shit, all of it's true. You can read it plain as day on Yaniv's face. They can't even keep it straight. There's something really infantile about it, and I think I've deleted it from this cut, but they sent a message to someone where they made baby noises, but they lie like an infant too. There's some sort of a psychological effect going on there that I'm not qualified to diagnose. Similarly, I can't really diagnose if Yaniv decided to be transgender to enable their abuse. But it seems clear that the Canadian laws allow people who would do so to be able to do so very easily.
I had doctor sign-offs. I went to court. I did everything in that order. And to me, that's a much better system than walking in as a lumberjack talking about, please make my ID an F. Because then you get people like you in the bathrooms presenting as men. So that's problematic as well. Again.
Okay, Blair, you see over here, all you have to do really is print out one form, get one signature.
And that's a problem.
Take off F and go into a walk-in clinic and you're female.
Right. And that's a problem. That's a problem. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be easy like that, because that opens the door for predators, aka you.
So the National Post ran a story about Yaniv. I think it was the same day as the Blair White interview. And apparently 2 of the women, one was Pakistani and the other was a Sikh woman. In one of her calls, she called a salon in Delta, BC, and Yaniv asked about the price. Come here, then we can talk to you, says the woman, and then, fucking bastard, we don't do. Are you mentally sick? This is a salon. Why do you keep calling? Fuck. As the BC Human Rights Tribunal has heard Yaniv's complaints in recent weeks, public outrage has been roused over the possibility that anti-discrimination laws require women to wax male genitalia. Well, hey, they require men to not get jobs in favor of women and other such discrimination, but yeah, that's where you're going to draw the line? Especially vulnerable, racialized women working in precarious service jobs. You know, the fatality rate of salon workers is just way up there. And all those racialized women where they're the majority group. I gave Blair White shit about it earlier. I better give the National Post shit about it too. I mean, think about it. This article is to complain about the discrimination laws, right? But these poor racialized women. Okay, well, let's appeal to 2 other protected groups to, you know, combat the one protected group. We'll just add more and more protection on there, right? Create that, gotta knock her down a couple layers on that progressive stack. Apparently, the tribunal member in charge of the case has gotten mad at Yaniv over all the different cases that she kept opening during the thing and having so many duplicate complaints, and how she withdrew some of them after they apparently gave her money, or withdrew the complaints after they lawyered up. But the member has also explicitly refuted that Yaniv's conduct is vexatious or that her complaints are frivolous. So they're saying they're warranted, they're merited. Quote, waxing can be critical, gender-affirming care for trans women. And in case you needed just that one last little bit of evidence that Yaniv's a complete fucking jackass. The mobility scooter. All that estrogen, the osteoporosis already setting in. It's amazing he's still menstruating while he's going through menopause.
The tribunal member, Ms. Cusino, has already stated that gender affirming care is important. What I'm trying to receive is gender affirming care. I'm going to be winning all these cases. There's no doubt.
You know what's sick? I'm sure you fucking will. I
will. Because they very simply discriminate. There is basically an equation for discrimination in the BC law. And I've met all those variables of discrimination. Everything's met. I'm part of a protected class. I'm transgender. The fact of the matter is that my gender identity was relevant in the refusal of service, and I got refused service.
And I agree as well that Yaniv's case is pretty solid here, according to the letter of the law. From what I can tell, they fulfill all the criteria to win their case. The only mitigating factor I could see that would stop her is malicious intent, perhaps. I don't know if that's a factor in a social justice tribunal. Perhaps the ethnic disparagement I've already heard brought up, and there was some more of that on Blair White's stream. I wish you guys wouldn't fucking do that while I was recording.
Jessica, what you don't understand is there is freedom of association. There is freedom to deny services. There isn't
here, Blair. There isn't here.
We've already been over that the Canadian laws need reform.
To make things even more complicated, there's a list, I think it's actually two different lists of various accommodations and their obligations. I think they're federal. So certain services have different obligations to other services. But I can't find it. But while I was looking for it, I came across an Ontario Human Rights Commission example case of a Muslim barber who denied a woman service when she wanted a haircut. And so he said, no, it's against my religion to cut a woman's hair, which, I mean, I agree, it certainly is. The Ontario Human Rights Code states that business owners can't deny services based on sex. And not only that, but the public didn't get any conclusion from it because they worked things out in a confidential agreement, and McGregor says she was happy with the outcome. I gotta admit, progressives, you won this day.
Do you think young girls and women are scared when you walk into the bathroom?
No, never.
Really?
No, they're not.
You think you've never put just a slight amount of trepidation or fear in any female's heart in the bathroom?
No, I don't.
You would in mine, and I'm a trans woman.
You know what I'm gonna say?
In the bathroom, I would have to think about some things. I have to locate the exit. You know what I mean? I would think about some things.
Really?
Yeah, I am genuinely disturbed by you.
So
and I don't it would even take me knowing all these facts about you to just feel that energy that you don't belong and that you're not someone that I should probably be around.
Subscribe our channel and press bell icon.
Oh man, no can do, no speaking English.